Happy to introduce Wei Jen Chen as our guest lecturer today. He's in our PhD program, finishing up his courses, and he has given lectures for this class in the past. Always gives excellent talk about the context, situation, history of Taiwan. And I'm happy to invite him once again to this class for his lecture. And let me see if we, Wei Jen, do you want to stay there or come here? Or if you need to, manipulate the video, maybe you need to stay there.
Here will be better.
Okay. And anything else before? And when are we eating the cake?
Whenever you want. Whenever you want. I'm ready to open it and push up right now.
Now maybe do it in the break before Wei Jen leaves.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. And anything else before we get started with Wei Jen's lecture?
It's hot.
Okay.
If not, Wei Jen, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you again for Dr. So's invitation. I have the privilege here to share my understanding of Taiwan with all of us. And for me, that's so flexible, so we can have cake right now or anytime, anything. Before I begin, the topic today is a very brief review of the Christians' missions or Christianity in Taiwan from 17th century to 21st century. It's my topic, but I try to include different elements into the lecture today. And before I begin, I want to know your name will be helpful for me.
Sure.
Yeah. And also your expectation of this lecture today. Maybe I can try to include your expectation within my presentation. I try hard to do that.
Sure. Perhaps maybe that can be incorporated into our questions.
Oh yes.
After we're done, or even in the middle of it, people can raise questions.
Yes. Yeah. Please raise question anytime if you have any questions.
Okay. Perhaps we can begin our name and the program we are in, and what year you think you are in.
So wrong.
There are some new faces here.
Rara, could you begin?
Paul Laredo, MDiv. I don't really know a lot about the Christianity in Taiwan, so just, because actually it wasn't in the reading, just China in general, so, and I know Taiwan's different than China and all that.
Yeah, you know
stuff.
Taiwan different than China.
Yes. So, yeah, just happy to learn whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Christopher, senior in my MDiv program, and I want to know everything there is to know.
Yes.
From the 17th to 21st century, Christianity in Taiwan. But I have known Taiwanese Christians, so there is differences there. But I look forward to your lecture.
That was good. I'm Andrew, MDiv student, second year.
Hi, Andrew.
Hello. I would like to know, in addition to Christianity, and just a very, if you can be general, about like the LGBTQ population in Taiwan and how that kind of fits into Christianity there.
I think it's coming.
I figured it was.
Yeah, good question.
Actually, maybe I do have. How did indigenous beliefs Yeah, I didn't even have to finish my question. You kind of know where I'm going with that.
Amazing question.
Good question.
Speaking in tongue, right?
Okay. I'm Nathan Jernigan. I'm a new student here. I'm in the MA, Religious Studies.
Yeah.
Hi, you know me, Nicole, MA. I thought about the indigenous stuff, the LGBTQ stuff, and then maybe like the role of women
woman. Oh,
Oh man, this is gonna be fun.
I'm Trevor. I'm a
nice
English
to meet you,
student.
Trevor.
Yeah, you as well. And I'll just leave it at that. I'll have questions as we go.
I'm Cherie. I'm last year MA.
Yay.
Yay. I really don't have questions right now. I want to hear what you have to say before I bring up a question.
I am Keisha, second year MDiv. I think the only question I really have, because in the last 3 weeks has been very interesting to me, of different cultures and how theology was introduced.
Hmm.
But I'm sure that was probably something you were going to speak on.
Hi, I'm Janen.
Junan?
Janen. First semester MA, and the thing that I've been wondering about, in addition to a lot of other pieces, specifically around women, I'm also thinking about national identity and nationhood and how that is intersecting with religious identity.
Nationality. Very interesting topic.
I'm Zach. You know me.
You know who I am.
Mine would be about, so in the West there's this political theology stuff that happens. Is there explicit Taiwanese political theology surrounding
Oh,
any discourses?
thank you. I will try to include all the topics as much as I can. There's some outline that I will try to go through the outlines. The current members and situation with Christianity. How did Christianity come to Taiwan, so-called Taiwan? From political perspective, how can we see the Christianity and the religions issues? And a topic about gospel and the culture, because Christianity was not a native-born religion for Taiwanese. And LGBT issue and the Christianity and the short summary of that. And if you have any question, you can stop me. And we have a new member.
Yay!
Oh, what are we doing?
Your name and your expectation of
Your
this
name, how
lecture.
much money you have.
Name,
right
rank,
now.
serial number. Name, rank, and serial number.
The expectation of your lecture?
About Taiwan, anything you want to know about Taiwan?
What year? Yeah.
Oh,
The degree.
teach me about the art of Taiwan.
Christianity.
Your name.
Catherine Chilpa.
Thank you. And this picture is interesting though. This is a Catholic sanctuary in Taiwan nearby my city, Tainan City. And this is a sanctuary of that chapel. And in the middle, you can see that, there are 3 old men there. What would that be?
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Yeah, the Trinity. They be transformed into different figures in this chapel. And what are those people? There are 13 gentlemen there.
Oh yeah,
The Last Supper.
Last Supper.
Yeah, and this is the place they have the body of Christ. They are all try to transform into different cultural symbols in this place. The figure of this building looks like a Buddhist temple outside. Inside, just look like a Buddhist temple. It's a Catholic church in Taiwan. Okay, this is part of the topic about the gospel and the culture. Okay, this is me. My name is Wei Jen, and Wei Jen Chen is my Mandarin pronunciation. My Taiwanese pronunciation will be Wei Jen Dan. Dan is my last name, and I'll be written like this. This Chen, Wei Jen, Dan, Wei Jen. My nickname is Charing. Do anyone know what the meaning of Charing? Charing is the name from United Kingdom. Charing Crossroads. My name from that Charing. I was born that time, and my mom belonged to Hakka, and my father belonged to Hele. So I come from 2 different backgrounds. They have their own language, their own culture. So when my mom and my father they get married, their own family is so angry at each other. who want to marry a person who cannot speak our language. What does that mean?
The tribes, you guys are.
Affinity. They're different and they share different background, language. So they have lots of problem. So when my mom moved to Thailand, my hometown, lived with my father, she had lots of problem to understand the daily conversation. So she need to learn another language. And when my father visit my mother's family, he has a much more problem. He cannot understand at all. So he only visit my mother's family maybe once a year or maybe less. When I was a kid, when I visit my mother's parents, what? It's an alien world for me. I just cannot understand. Even the food is quite different, so I just cannot get used to that. So I always ask my mom to bring me to McDonald's to have my supper. I cannot survive there. That's all. I got my degree from those institute. Okay, this is about Taiwan. This is the figure of Taiwan. Taiwan. This is Taiwanese pronunciation name Daiwan. Daiwan is a name from a tribe, a Silaya tribe. This tribe, the name of the tribe is Dayang. But when 17th century, when the foreigners, the Dutch businessmen, they visit Taiwan, they try to figure out how could they call this island. So they call this place Taiwan. This is the name. After all, we use Taiwan. But at that time, people do not call this place as Taiwan. They call that Formosa at the 17th century. And the diversity of Taiwan is that we have 23 million populations. The capital is Taipei City. Where is Taipei? Compared to this map, it's always the north, the south. The Taipei was here. In my hometown, Tainan is here. But at that time, the map of Formosa always like this. It's horizontal, not vertical. So you cannot tell which part is more important. At that time, the capital is here, my hometown, Tainan City. So it will be the center of the whole island. And right now, we have more than 60 different native Taiwanese tribes. And the biggest two ethnicity, one is Hele, my father's ethnicity, and my mother's ethnicity is Hakka. And there are lots of people from China after 1949. We have lots of new immigrants from different countries through the marriage. The language we have, each of the tribe have their own language. And my mom can speak Mandarin, Hakkanese, and Taiwanese. She can speak 3 different languages. For me, I can speak Taiwanese and Mandarin. The official language of Taiwan right now is more than 16 different languages. With all the tribes, they should be recognized for official language. So even the document itself can be written in their own language. But most of the time, we will have another language to compare. For me, I cannot read their language, so I still need to understand what they are talking about. And most of the denomination, Christian denomination, they moved from China after 1949. I will talk about that later. The Christianity occupied the population about 6.9. And the Presbyterians, they have 60%. The Catholic, they have 60%. Independent churches, they have 20%. Other denominations, for example, the Lutherans, the Methodists, the rest of them will be 50%. The religions in Taiwan is different though. in this map is 2005. The Christianity only have 4% there. Most of the people in Taiwan, they are Buddhism or Taoism. Then there may be about 70%. But non-religious person, they are about 20. And the picture on the right is one of the biggest Buddha museum in Kaohsiung. It's above a mountain. There are lots of different temples here. They belong to one museum. is a Buddhist museum. There are some different other religions there. And the Christian population in 2005 is about 4%. In 2015, about 7%. It's all the denomination right now. The Presbyterian Church in Taiwan, PCT, the first one, occupy about the membership growth. They will be like this. It's the biggest denomination in Taiwan. They have about 1,200 congregations, and the denomination we are familiar with, maybe Baptists. There may be only 200 congregations. The Lutheran only have 78, and the Catholic have 700 congregations. And most of the denomination, they have membership increase. Yes.
So the denomination is named Little Flock and Bread of Life?
Yes. They are independent, actually. They are evangelical Christians.
They're what?
They are evangelical.
Evangelical.
Most of the denominations, they are evangelical, just like this, independent of others. So the mainline denomination in Taiwan is very difficult to define who are the mainline denomination. Maybe the Presbyterian or Lutheran or Baptist we are familiar with.
Okay.
And this is the membership that PCT have 30%, another 30% the Catholic, the little flock here. The smaller congregations, Presbyterian, they occupy about 40%, and Catholic about 25%. And the newest survey of the Christianity in Taiwan is about, we have 0.2% increase since 2015. But most of the congregation, they are less than 100 membership. About 60% the local congregation, they are less than, fewer than 100 membership. Oh, so I need to include where's Episcopalian. The Episcopalian in Taiwan, they belong to the Episcopalian Church of the United States. Prevalence number 8. Do you know that? You know that. It's one of the. Huh?
What are you saying?
Oh, the Episcopal Church of Taiwan. They are under the name of the Episcopal Church of the United States.
Okay.
And they come to Taiwan after 1949. There are 16 congregations, and the members about 1,000. This is Episcopalian. And this Islam, we have lots of Islam. There are more than how to pronounce this word?
Episcopal.
Episcopal. We have more Muslim friends in Taiwan. There are about 60,000. They occupy 0.3 populations in Taiwan. This is one of the biggest mosque in Taipei City since 1960. So every Sunday, also every Saturday, we can see lots of different religions all around Taiwan. And how did Christianity come to Formosa? Is that okay right now?
Can I ask them?
Yes, please.
I noticed you use Formosa, and Formosa is for Taiwan, right? Do you still pretty much call it Formosa?
For me, from most of the globe, I always check the globe. The globe always mention Formosa.
It doesn't mention Taiwan?
You also mention Taiwan. The newest one will mention Taiwan.
Okay,
Hmm.
okay,
But at that time, people will identify this island as Formosa, the
okay.
main beautiful island from Spanish, I think. But at the very beginning, the Taiwan was under the control of nobody. everyone can claim I occupy a particular area. So in 17th century, especially 1924, VOC, how to pronounce that? I have a problem. It's a Dutch company.
Verenigde Ostindische Compagnie.
Company?
But
We can call it VOC. That's totally fine.
VOC,
Yeah, VOC.
Okay.
VOC.
Got it.
They defeat Ming Dynasty, so they can claim they can control the whole island. They also defeat the Spain. They occupy the northern part of Taiwan, so they can control the whole island. And they start their business in Taiwan, especially they include lots of ministers. Most of all the ministers, they belong to Dutch Reformed Church, so they come with a business VOC in Taiwan. Their major ministry in Taiwan is try to decrease the tension between VOC and indigenous people. They want to bring their religion and education to them. So they just try to do a very special role in between two people. There are the ministers they are doing there. There are several names here. So in our history, the first minister, Christian minister, will be this gentleman. He arrived Taiwan in 1627, a Dutch Reform minister. And after him, the chief minister in Taiwan will be this gentleman, Hamburg. I cannot pronounce his name. He arrived Taiwan in 1648. And this is an interesting book, Law of Formosa, talking about VOC, the story of VOC, and what happened in 17th century. At that time, the capital of VOC, of the headquarters of VOC, was not in Taiwan. It's in Indonesia. How to pronounce this word? Batavia. Batavia. In Indonesia. It was the capital of the whole empire. And Formosa only one of their so-called province or the area they have business with. And this interesting book, we can just read online on Amazon Prime. And there's a special chapter talking about those ministers, what they have done in Taiwan in chapter 10. At that time, those ministers, they took a great job. They tried to translate the New Testament into the native language, the Xingang language. They're very important in the 7th centuries. At that time, people cannot read, but they can be taught to spell in Roman character. So this is the Bible, the Gospel of Matthew, the chapter 1, from verse 1 to verse 6. On the left, it will be Dutch language. On the right, it will be Silaya language, Xingang language. So people can compare these two different languages to learn how to speak in Xingang language or speak in Dutch. This document is very important because this tribe lost their language after all. So right now they try to restore their language from the Bible in 7th century. Amazing. At that time, the biggest congregation in Taiwan, in Tainan City, the name of the congregation named Taiwan. The people who call this island Taiwan after all, because that congregation, that Christian congregation named Taiwan. So people, especially the Christian country, they try to identify that place instead of calling them Formosa. They call that church name Taiwan. After all, we use this name. At that time, there are more than 50 native missionaries. They are trained by the Dutch minister. There are two jobs there. The first job is try to decrease the tension between them. The second job is try to bring some religious education to the people. So this gospel was translated into in 1661. This gospel. At that time, they have an interesting issue about translation. How can we translate God into a native language? So they try hard to find out a particular term for them. So find out the alit. The Ali will be there, will be included in their religion already. The Ali means the Most High, the noble ancestor. So they use Ali instead of using God when they translate the New Testament. But after Dutch, after VOC, the Ming Dynasty take over the island again. That will be in 1628. At that time, the chief minister, he was asked to try to convince the VOC and the military to surrender to the Ming Dynasty. But this minister, he rejected to do that. He rejected to convince his church and VOC to surrender. And he was killed by the general after all. So he also became the first person or the first 3 persons who lost their life in Taiwan because of they know this general was not a good person. He come to kill people. After all, when the general come to Taiwan, all the Dutch and the foreigners, they are asked to leave Taiwan at once. If they do not want to leave, they will be killed. And the general really did lots of things very bad. He started to kill lots of people after all. And this is a painting drawn in 1810. But it looks very odd for me. I don't think lots of people will look like this. It would be this minister. But who is this gentleman? I have no idea. I have a problem to understand. Like it's kind of Orientalism that people there maybe a little black.
Could be.
Maybe, yeah, actually. And during this period, there's no any Christian education are allowed. The general import another religion from China to ask all the people only can worship another religion instead of Christianity. But guess what? The Christianity did not die. Rock never died. During this period, people, although there are no minister at all, although there are no church at all, how could people keep their religion? They try to transform their worship into different figures. And after all, people find out that just like we have read a novel, Silence, when the Christians they are under the oppression, they will try to transform their religion. So those Christians, they transform the Christian religion into kind of folk religion. They worship the water, and they will wear in white during their ceremony or liturgy. Their God have no name. Their God have no figure. They will worship the water. They will worship a God with no name. What does that mean? They still keep a kind of Christian worship in their daily life, in their religious life. Although there's no church, no Bible, no cross, or no chapel at all, they keep this kind of religion. Interesting. So they still have this kind of liturgy even today. They still keep in their culture. Is that okay? And after all, the general was defeated. The general was defeated by Qing Dynasty. So Qing Dynasty take over the island again since 1983 to 1895. And all the foreigners, they are not allowed to do the ministry in China, in territory of China, in Qing Dynasty. No minister at all. But after 1858, the Treaty of Tianjin, there are lots of harbor they are asked to open for a reason of business. So one of the harbor in Taiwan was open, and the minister they are allowed to visit the territory of Qing Dynasty. So the missionarian, they came back to Taiwan again. So the first come back to Taiwan will be on the North Taiwan. Is the Catholic priest. They belong to Dominican. How to pronounce that word?
Dominican.
Yeah, Dominican. Yeah, they are from Spanish Dominicans. This is the first Catholic church in Taiwan, in Kaohsiung City, in the southern part of Taiwan, and it still look like the same. The Holy Rosary Cathedral in Kaohsiung City, just next to the harbor. And after all, the Protestant minister, they also visit Taiwan in 1865. In the south part, it will be Church of Scotland, from Church of Scotland. And on the north part will be a Presbyterian Church in Canada in 1872. They also belong to Presbyterians. So when they coming back, the strategy they use is to try to how could we convince the people to transform their religion into Christianity. The first strategy they use is to try to bring new medicines and new technology to heal the disease. So most missionarian in Taiwan, he's a doctor actually. He tried to have a clinical in Tainan City at the very beginning. He belonged to Church of Scotland. And another seminary missionarian from Church of Scotland is Thomas Barclay. Thomas Barclay has also visited Tainan, and he became the first president of my seminary, Tainan Theological College and Seminary, in 1876. And at that time, when they come back to this island, they try hard to proclaim the gospel to the general person, the Han person, the Hele person, or the Hakka person, but they did not gain a lot of new members. But when they visit the indigenous tribe, the indigenous tribe just so welcoming them, and the indigenous people, they call those missionarians that our brown-haired relatives. It seems that their ancestors told them, we have very good friends. Their hair color is quite different than us. Most of the Taiwanese people, we have hair in black, but the missionarian, they may be in brown, in red, in other color. So they told their children that we have very good friends. Their hair color is different. So when the missionarian, they visit those tribes, they are welcome to join them. And those missionaries find out their worship style is so similar with Christianity. So when they try to reintroduce the Christianity to them, they receive their religion very quickly. They convert from their original religion into Christianity very quickly. And they also switch from Allah to God very easily. Especially when those doctors, they bring new medicine to them, they always do the same thing. I will give you the medicine, and we will pray together. And 3 days later, you got healed. It seems that it's very powerful for the people to convert themselves into Christianity. Especially this kind of religion was not unfamiliar to them. Yes.
Brown hair relatives. What does that mean?
They are those missionarians. They are our relatives. They are our family, and their hair is in brown, not in black. They are our relatives.
Okay.
At that time, the indigenous people, they have lots of tension between the non-indigenous people. So they find out, they are the missionarian. They are our friends.
Got it.
And so the success in the Soraya tribe was because of this this worship that took place form of worship that took place earlier, this Ali worship, right?
Yes.
That you were talking about earlier with kind of the water and the wearing white and things like that. Was that
Yes.
so because they had that, they were able to adopt?
Yes, adapt easily.
Interesting.
So then it was kind of the leftovers of the Christianity that had okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they rediscover their religion. And this is my seminary. Yeah, it looks like not Taiwanese at all. It looks like the Westminster Chapel, actually in United Kingdom, because it was duplicated according to the Church of Scotland, their traditions, their culture. So it looks like not Taiwanese at all. It looks like the Church of Scotland, the style, almost the same. Even the cross was from Church of Scotland. This kind of style. And that was in the south. It was in the north. In the north, the Reverend George Mackay, and his nickname is Blackbeard Bible Man. He has a very huge black beard. You know, he loves to talk about the Bible and the story on the street, in the market. So people have this nickname to him. And he also married a Taiwanese woman and have 3 children. And he belonged to Presbyterian Church in Canada. He arrived in Taiwan in 1872. And after all, he has a big success. He started more than 50 congregations in northern Taiwan. So he was elected as a moderator of PCC in 1884. 1884. And he's a dentist.
Okay.
He helped more than 500 people to heal their toothache. So it's the same thing though. We will pray together and we'll do something in your mouth. After all, no pain at all. So people feel so strange. What happened to me? So the people just curious about what is guy talking about the Bible. What's that? So they're curious about that and they just enter the church and listen to the gospel. Quite successful at that time. But maybe not anymore.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, when they were giving medication or healing the teeth, were they being forthright and explaining like science and medicine, like this, or were the missionaries also being like, wow, it's the power of God, specifically to convert them?
Can you say that question again?
Okay, so you're saying that often they're given medication and were being prayed with, and then they were healed. So did they realize that the medication on its own could have healed them? Or did the missionaries make them believe that without the praying, the medication wouldn't work?
Yes, it's a good question though. At that time, that in Taiwan we have herbal medicine. Herbal medicine do not do the surgery like this.
Right.
And when the missionarian they bring the new medicine from the Western, it's quite different, quite powerful. So people will understand the medicine they use after prayer is quite different. We also use the medicine. The missionary use the medicine. But the missionarian, they have prayer with us. So maybe this is the reason why the medicine is so powerful. Especially those people who do not have enough money to see a doctor. Those missionaries provide free medicine to them. So at the very beginning,
so they kind of felt obligated then.
Yeah. So the first generation of Christians, they maybe not from a very wealthy family.
Thank you.
It's a good question though. And after that, after Qing Dynasty, Taiwan was the ruling power of Taiwan was transferred to another country. Japan started ruling over Taiwan since 1895. Qing dynasty, Qing nation, they gave Taiwan and some islands to Japan in 1895 till 1945. And during this period, most of the time, it's free for all kind of mysteries. We must know Japan was influenced by British a lot, especially the religion and scientific industry. So they welcome all different kind of things, especially the religions affairs. So especially the Presbyterian, they co-op with the government, so they get lots of resources for government, so they have no problem at all. At that time, the British, they are good friends with Japanese government. At that time, another denomination also have the permission to have mystery in Taiwan, the True Jesus Church, since they established in China in 1917, but they come to Taiwan in 1926. And after that, but when during World War II, the Japanese government, they need to do something to all their territory. In 1936, the National Spiritual Mobilization Movement, it asked all the religion to worship the empire, to adopt their national religion, including the Christians. At that time, the first time during this period, the Christianity have kind of tension with the government. But most of the Christians, they do the same thing. They just worship the empire to survive, or they need to leave. At that time, the foreign missionaries, they reject to do the same thing. So they are asked to leave in 1940s. So all the denominations in Taiwan, most of them are Catholic and Presbyterian. They need to become independent without the help of the foreign resources and foreign missionaries. So for Presbyterian, they start their general assembly in 1943. Before that, the two different missionaries in southern part, in northern part, they are separated. They have their area for the mystery. But after 1940s, there are no missionaries at all. So we need to unite together. So they unite into one Presbyterian. But before that, there are two Presbyterians in Taiwan. This is one of the oldest church in Taipei City, belong to Presbyterians. It looks like very westernized. During this period, that the Bible was translated into Taiwanese. This is the Mandarin version of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. The first version is 1990. The second revised in 2010. The KJM. This Taiwanese the Bible in 1873. Somebody can try to read the first verse. Just try.
Guang Qi Tiao Chong Chi Chi Hong Cho. I don't know what to do with that N. Tai Ting Kap Cho. Am I close?
Yeah, very close. Wow, very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Close, but no figure out.
Yeah.
I will read that again. One key tao, song day, chong the ti ga dui. One key tao means in the beginning. Song day means God. Chong the means create. Ti heaven, God and the earth. For you almost can read this scripture without any teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the reason why the missionary try to translate the Bible into this kind of language. All they need to do is try to teach you how to pronounce this word. How to pronounce this word. How to pronounce this word. How to pronounce this word.
Yeah.
Only a pronunciation problem. We don't need to read this kind of character. Too difficult. We also need to know how to pronounce in our daily language through the scripture. So people can read the Bible without formal education. So maybe 3 hours education, how to read this kind of character, they can read the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why the Christianity can try to teach to each other through this kind of language. So when the missionarian they try to publish a newspaper, they also use this character. So all the Christians they can read what happened in different churches and what happened to other worlds. So the earliest newspaper in Taiwan they are published by the Presbyterian churches in 1885. At the very beginning for the mysteries purpose. This is the Bible. The New Testament was fully translated in 1916. The Old Testament in 1930. And that time, again, we need to decide what's the term for the God. What the term for the God? In 17th century, they decided to use Alit because their ancestor worship. How about those people right now? They use different terms. They use Xiongde. We have used this term Xiongde, means the highest one. Their folk religion, they have this term. That most of people, they are just the folk religion. So they use the same term in the Bible to call God. And we start lots of hospital schools for the religious purpose. Is that okay during this area? Mm-hmm. But after World War II, this island, the ruling power of this island moved to another power again. Japan was defeated by lots of countries, including United States. At that time, Japan gave up the sovereign power of Taiwan, gave that back to the. At that time, we do not call United Nations, right? We have another name for the allies, including United States. What do we call them?
Before United Nations,
Yeah.
there was United League.
United League. Oh yeah, United League. Yeah, and they give up the island and give that back to United League. And the leader of the China ally is this gentleman, Chiang Kai-shek. He's a general at that time. So he was asked to take over after Japan for the next decision. After World War II, lots of different territory, they are during unknown situation. They will be decided after all maybe by their people or by other power. By that time, Taiwan was asked to take over under Chiang Kai-shek. All the Japanese ministers, they are asked to leave. So the Japanese ministers, they are not exist in Taiwan anymore. But in 1949, the Nationalist Party from China, they lost the mainland China and retreat to Taiwan and occupy Taiwan officially, not legally, officially occupy Taiwan. Especially after 1950, the People's Republic of China, it means the China we mentioned right now, they do not allow any religion activity. So all the denominations, Christian denominations, they need to leave mainland China. All of them, they just moved to Taiwan. So after 1949, there are lots of Christian denominations showed up in Taiwan. All of them, they moved from China. And including lots of foreign ministers, they are not allowed to stay in China. So also they moved to Taiwan during that period. So after that, after 1949, there are lots of different denominations, lots of different missionaries from different countries in Taiwan. Not only those Presbyterians from Scotland or from Canada. And the presidents of Republic of China, not People's Republic of China, the country of Republic of China who occupied Taiwan, he's also a Christian. He's a Methodist. But he's a killer.
He's a killer.
He's a killer. When he just occupied Taiwan, he sent lots of military to Taiwan to take over Taiwan. Lots of people just greeting, oh, we have a new ruling power, including lots of Christian churches. We just welcome a new so-called friendly political power. But when the people, they welcome those military at the harbor, the military soldiers just shoot at them. All of them are killed at once because they assume they will not obey our government, and they cannot speak Mandarin at all. They only can speak Japanese. So for my grandfather and grandmother, their national identity is Japanese. They were born in that period. They are told to speak in Japanese. So when the people try to get used to another political power, the language is another problem. The ruling power, they speak one language, but most of people speak another. How can they communicate? There are lots of misunderstanding.
So, your grandparents, were they born in Taiwan?
Yeah, they're born in Taiwan.
But they just were made to speak Japanese.
Japanese and Taiwanese. My
Okay.
father's father and mother, they speak Japanese and Taiwanese. My mother's mother and father, they speak Japanese and Hakkanese.
Okay.
So if those two different parents, they want to communicate with each other, need to speak in Japanese.
Okay.
But right now, they need to speak in Mandarin to communicate. The church at that time, most of the church, they worship in their own language, in Taiwanese. But the new government, they do not allow that to continue. They ask the church to use another language. Even they try to refuse the church to use this kind of Bible. This kind of Bible, what does that mean? The government do not understand that. Do you want to do something wrong against the government during on Sunday morning? What the language you use, what the newspaper you read. So they have this kind of tension. All of this has done by this gentleman, another Christian, Methodist Christian. But after World War II, especially during the 1951 to 65, there's another Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan is the United States to help the European country to recover after World War II. There's a similar plan to my country at that time. The United States government will loan $100 million US each year to Taiwan for 15 years to help this political power to recover from World War II. But the purpose is against the Chinese Communist Party, the People's of Republic of China. The KMT, the Nationalist Party, that after all, we find out that this party, the gentleman we just introduced, Chiang Kai-shek, they took more than 75% of $1 billion US into their personal pocket. They only used 25% of the loan to recover this country. This country, a small country. At that time, people realized there's something wrong there. So they tried to connect with the friend they could trust, the churches. So they deliver the resources through the churches to the people during these 15 years. So the AB churches, they will be sent lots of resources. For example, the milk, the meats, or other things, other groceries. They will be sent to the churches, and the church will deliver to the people around them during this period. So this will bring lots of benefits. The Christian church, the membership of Christian church increase at that time. People don't sit there and listen to the Sunday morning sermon. After that, they can get something they need for their family. This is one of famous persons, Eisenhower. He visited Taiwan in 1960, 1 year before he died. This is the president, Chiang Kai-shek, at that time, in Taipei City. He came to Taiwan to visit what happened to this plan, another Marshall Plan in Taiwan. So at that time, in the very beginning, in 1954, there are only less than 1% Christian population in Taiwan. And after, when we receive these kind of resources, which start to new missionary biblical schools, so 10 years later, the local congregation from 200 increased 100% to 400 congregation. The membership increased 200% during this area. But when the resources stopped, and at 1965, the membership decreased 40% within 5 years. Why? I got no grocery at all. That's one thing. The other thing is we do not have enough ministers to teach something really important to them. So they just do not have their faith at all. So they left the church. And we also have another issues about the gospel and the church and the culture. There are some problems happened. I will introduce that later. And the social context, we never talk about social context. What does that mean for us to read the gospel and Christianity? How could Christianity contribute their spirit to our context? People start to think about that. Do people come to a church only for the material, for personal salvation, or what else? Do anyone concerned about common good? There's an issue at that time. Okay, so far. About women. Women are coming. Yeah.
Are you gonna teach?
Huh?
Are you gonna, after PhD, become a teacher?
Maybe. Yeah, it's a good question. Okay, the killer in Chiang Kai-shek, he killed lots of people in 1954, 228. We call the white terror. That we have a martial law from 1945 to 87. What does that mean? It's 43 years martial law.
Really?
Do you think Taiwan was a democratic country? Martial law for 40 years. We have a dictator, a Christian dictator, and the United States supports this dictator for a long time. There are some background because we need to United States need to fight with the communists at that time. They need someone who is not communist. Okay, the first ordained female minister was this lady. Her name was Bang Zhan Li. Her last name is Li. Her name is Bang Zhan, Reverend Bang Zhan Li. She graduated from my seminary 4 years before she got ordained in Tainan Seminary. And she was the first ordained minister in Taiwan. Do you know when the Church of Scotland ordained the first female minister? In 1970. So the missionary in Taiwan, they ordained a female minister 20 years earlier than their mother church. Interesting. And at that time, people still think about what the contextualization theology means for us. And in 1970, we had lots of tension in politics. We will talk about that later. All this try to respond to this. What are the theology mean to us in our context? What the Christianity means to us in our context? People start to think about that issue. This is the first Taiwanese seminary president. His name is Shaki Ko. It's Japanese name, Shaki Ko. He's the first Taiwanese seminary president. Also showed up in that time. After the missionary they are asked to leave, people need to think about our context. At that time, this is one of the seminarian theologians at our time. He's still alive. His name is Zhuan Xing Song. He was a president. He was a president of my seminary for 5 years. He graduated from Union Theological Seminary in 1965. Do you know who is his advisor at that time?
Was it James Comey? No.
Yes, James Comey, his advisor. So he started to think something different from our context. For example, on the left, the third eye theology, theology in formation in Asian settings. What the theology means in our setting, in Asia setting. What does that mean for a text? If a text is fixed text, for example, only the Bible, only the text, how about the other story? So he's talking about the story should be the beginning. So the Jesus Christ could incarnate into different figure, into different contexts. So what would that be? What are those stories? What the story we can learn from those stories? So could a Jesus be a Taiwanese Jesus? I think that was the issue also for us. Is a Jesus a white Jesus or not? A white Jesus could be a black Jesus or black people's savior. Is that true or not? People start talking about that. He also talked about that in Taiwan. But he was not allowed to come back to Taiwan after he left Taiwan in 1970s. Because the government do not allow him to go back to Taiwan because his thinking was too dangerous to Taiwan. We'll talk about that later. Because he's talking about ourselves. Who are we? What are our identity? What are our nationality? It's very dangerous, including his theologies. His books was not allowed to sell in Taiwan at that time. We have dictator Christians president. Okay, the trend of the Christianity in Taiwan will be the independent churches will grow faster than the mainland denominations. And the charismatic movement is quite obvious right now. And the prosperity gospel is very strong in Taiwan.
So is that ever
Very similar somewhere. And then the difference between denominations, we just cannot tell the difference. They use the same language, use the same worship style. The term they use almost the same. And we need to think about the definition of the kingdom of God. Before we enter the next slide, what are the politics and the Christianity means to you?
How Christianity affects the ruling of a state.
Oh.
That's what I think. That's what I think of. Because that's
Religion
why
and the state should be divided or not.
Whether they're divided or not, there's going to be a relationship there. So, like, what is the nature of that relationship?
Yes, that's very true. We have that issue in Taiwan too. everyone, we must know the World Council of Churches, WCC, they are founded in 1948 after World War II. Because we have realized the failure of Christianity and humanity after World War II, so we need to find a way. So during that time, the Presbyterian Church in Taiwan, they are included in WCC since 1940s. But at that time, the government of Taiwan, they assumed this organization was not friendly to the government, because WCC, they allow the congregations, the denominations from China to join them, which means that the communists will join one of our churches. So the government asked the Presbyterians to withdraw from WCC because the WCC accept the communist countries, especially the churches from China. So at that time, the government, they invite the ICCC, the International Council of Christian Churches. Did anyone know this? ICCC. It was a Christian right in United States. They form another councils of churches in the United States. They are Christian rights. For example, the PCUSA, they did not join ICCC. They joined WCC only. The agenda campaign are quite different in these two organizations. But ICCC, they against communists. So the government asked the Presbyterian in Taiwan, you should withdraw from WCC and join ICCC instead. But the Presbyterian, they just have struggling with that. Oh, we should keep in an ecumenical relationship all the churches around the world, not only the churches in the United States. But at the same time, not all Republicans politicians, they are Christian too. They join ICCC. So they support the government in Taiwan since that time, since 1950s. So the government of United States, they support Taiwanese government since that time. So there is a tension between the Presbyterian Taiwan and these two organizations. At that time, Presbyterians they were considering about this issue. The moderator of the General Assembly, PCT at that time, has a car accident just right before the General Assembly. People will assume that he was killed by the government because he need to decide the Presbyterian need to withdraw or not. But he seems to not want to surrender to the government. So he lost his life. After all, the Presbyterian to withdraw from WCC. It's the first tension between the government and the Presbyterian Church in Taiwan. So it was in 1970s. In 1971, the Republic of China, my government, they withdrew from United Nations. They have no seats at all at that time. So at that time, the Presbyterian, they just want to say something. They just want to ask the government to re-elect the lawmakers. All the lawmakers, they are from China. So most of them, they are maybe in 80s or 90s. They even cannot walk to the Congress at all. They just cannot raise their hand. And all the mayors, all the ministers, they are just assigned by the president. They are not democracy at all. So this church asked the government to do something different to make this country revival. But the government refused to do that. But this statement is very important, which means this church wants to do something in politics. That was a big danger to the government. So at that time, the theologian I just introduced, this gentleman, he also a minister of a Presbyterian. When he left Taiwan in 1970s, he was not allowed to enter Taiwan anymore at that time because he was one of the people who tried to push this statement. And in that time, this statement, there are 4 major denominations. They discuss this statement together, including the Methodist, Baptist, and the Lutheran. There are 4 denominations. They try to do something together. So they have this draft together. But after all, the rest of the denomination, they withdraw from this statement. Only the Presbyterian announced this statement by itself. All the denominations, they do not want to participate in this statement because they got a warning from the government. You should not intervene in any politics. So only the Presbyterian do this. So after this statement, all the denominations, they just against the Presbyterians in Taiwan. So only a Presbyterian will be only the denominations can and want to take care about the politics and political situation and social issues. Only the Presbyterian will take good care of that. And in 1977, we have another statement of human rights. This statement was sent to the President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, at that time. The statement will ask that Taiwan should establish a new and independent nation by our own, which means the current government do not have this kind of statement. So this church was go to another extreme on the politics issues. So the statement of faith in 1986, talking about the contest, is both universal and rooted in this land, talking about the contest, identifying with all its inhabitants, and through love and suffering becoming the sign of hope. Talking about homeland, we need to take good care about social, political, economic systems, arts, and science, everything. This church. And in 2014, that we have an interesting movement, that Sunflower Civil Movement. The student and organization occupied the Congress for 22 days because we're against the KMT government. Because in March 24th, the KMT government, they used violence against the people. There are 100 people that get wounded at that night. More than 500,000 people protest on the streets a week later. There are only one denomination get involved in this protesting, the Presbyterian, only them. Rest of the denomination, they do not allow their members to participate in this movement. For lots of people, they will assume the Presbyterian, they are treason. They are traitors of this country.
What year was that?
2014. From March 18 to April 10. Yeah, I slept in that place for 4 nights. It's a very interesting experience for me.
So you were with the students?
Huh? I'm a student at that time, a seminarian. So my seminary, we just stayed off a week, whole week. The Presbyterian seminaries. We don't have the class. Our class is there. Our class is on the street. So our professors, the moderator of the Presbyterian, we just have a public lecture on the streets.
Okay.
And talk to the policeman there. You should not be there. Something like that. A very interesting experience. Yeah, about politics. But things change after all.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
On the previous slide, you made a comment about how the Presbyterian Church was involved, but no other Christian churches.
Mm.
So I'm wondering what is the difference? Like, why is it that some communities aligned with the independence movement and some communities did not?
Yeah, since this issue the statement, Presbyterian statement, the Presbyterian seems that against the KMT government. So the rest of the denomination, Christian denomination, they just feel we should not against the government.
Right.
So they just have quite different political attitude.
Mm-hmm.
But not anymore. There's something different. The gospel and the culture. Someone talking about the indigenous tribes. How about the United States? How many Native Americans they are Christians? The percentage.
A lot.
Huh?
I said a lot.
A lot Native American. How many percentage of African Americans, Native Americans they are Christians?
I'm Googling.
Probably low.
I'd say probably 50%.
Ah.
I think it's low.
How many?
Oh, geez,
Like
probably
Latin.
15%. Maybe.
15?
15, more than 50.
I think it's more than that.
More than
I
that?
would say 60.
You mean
60.
Christians now, present day?
Among the Native American
Yeah, Native
population.
Americans.
I would say 60.
If it's definitely a. Huh.
Do you know?
Hmm?
Do you know?
Yes, I know that.
Well, then I should.
And how many?
How many?
Due to the evil
Oh.
Christian school, then I'm surprised if it's a higher number than we want.
Okay, less than 10%. According to these two denominations, UCC only has 0.5, PCUSA 0.2. It's less than 1% actually nationwide. Native American Christians less than 1% in this country.
Well, I was going off of the Steve alignment. I totally messed that up.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
I can believe that because every Native American I know is on the tribe.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that most of the Native Americans, they do not live in the tribe. Only 30% of Native Americans, they live in what's that, the special area for them?
Reservations.
But 70% of Native Americans, they live in our city, among us. Why they are not Christians? They are not chosen by God. Well, it's a question for us. Less than 1% actually. 70% they are live among us. But and those two denominations just show you the fact. Less than 1%.
Now, in like Minnesota, Wisconsin, places like that, most of them do still live on the reservation because reservation has become like its own little city. Fond du Lac.
Different laws.
Huh?
They have different
Yes,
laws.
the tribal laws. What's the state right now
North Dakota.
that's going through a voting thing?
Yeah, because a bunch
that's
of people
a
decided that,
large
you have to
population.
actually have an address to be able to vote.
And you have a P.O. box if you live
Instead
on
of
a
a-
reservation.
If you have a PO box, that's not a valid form of address.
They're taking away voting rights.
And that's aimed at Native Americans who mostly have PO boxes
way to
because
cut
they're on
them
the
out.
reservation.
Oh yeah, I mean they knew what
Yeah.
they were doing.
Wow,
That's hinky.
it sounds like colonization though. But it's quite different in Taiwan
They'll
though.
get it nailed, but it's still hinky as hell.
Yeah. Okay, now we can see about that. There are more than 16 tribes in Taiwan.
Okay.
One of the biggest tribes, we call it Baiwan tribe. They are about 20% among all the native population, native Taiwanese population. They occupy in the southern Taiwan, but 95% of them are Christians, including the Catholic and Protestant Christians. 95%. What does that mean? Wow, gospel so successful in the tribes, but why not in United States? And this is their churches. It looks quite different than the churches I showed you. their native customs. And this tribe, they are sons and daughters of snakes. Their ancestors are snakes, servants. From their story, from their genesis, we are sons and daughters of snakes. So they try to decorate snakes on everything. Their daily life, their custom, everything.
Does everybody dress like that?
No, that's a traditional dress.
Yeah, traditional dress. They still dress this to the church, to Sunday morning
They wear
worship.
dresses. Okay.
Baiwan means human. Most of the tribes in Taiwan, their name, the tribe name is mean human in their own language. So Baiwan means human. They are sons of snakes.
Yeah, and I saw that they were Austronesian, which so that means that they're kind of the Polynesian side of Austronesian, Polynesian. They're like that side of it as opposed to being like Chinese, Asian, that type, right?
Yeah, they are quite different than China.
Yeah,
China,
okay.
yeah, quite
Fair.
different. There are 96 congregations there. I mean, within Presbyterian, if we want to include other denominations, there will be more than 100, maybe 150 congregations in these tribes. But the problem is, if they are sons and daughters of snakes, how can they read the Genesis? Is there any problem when they read the Genesis?
Oh yeah.
That's true.
So at that time, people have problem when the Christianity moved into the tribes. They are not allowed to use those decorations anymore. You cannot show off anything about that.
Why?
You cannot have this on your face, on your hands, anything. You cannot bring this in at all. So there was a problem that their culture was not allowed in the Christian church in the 50s, 60s. So the elders, they're struggling with that. So how could we preserve our culture? What are the meaning of our ancestor worship? What does that mean? Could we worship Saturn because we worship snakes? What does that mean? Can we decorate our church with our traditional symbolic things? Can we do that? At the very beginning, was not allowed to do that, especially when the Christianity go back to the tribes. They are not allowed to do that. So right now, the young generation, they are struggling with that. They will decide not to go to a church to restore their culture. So the churches try to do something different, try to include those symbolic things and try to retell the story in their context. I hope it was not too late for them. And generally, most of the native Taiwanese, they are Christians or Catholics. Only 20% they are non-Christian, non-Catholic. So they have this issue. Could we use our traditional instrument to worship God, or we need to use a piano or organ as instrument of God? Should we have that, or we can use this kind of flute played by the note to worship our God? Could we do that? It's still their questions. But the hymn book, our hymnal, they are written for the piano, not written for this kind of flute. So they need to have their own hymnal. They have their own hymnal now. But I hope that was not too late for them. So there will be a problem. They also have another language translation issue. Each tribe, they have their name for their god. So they may use Gaia. And Gaia, very familiar in this country.
Yeah.
They use Gaia for their god. And how can we reinterpret about the snakes and Saturn? What does that mean?
A lot of pagans here use that too.
Yeah, how can we understand that things? And about including the liturgies looks so similar. The program of the worship looks like the Church of Scotland or the Presbyterian in Canada, why we always use the same liturgy? Can we have something different? That's they're talking about, and the gap between the culture and the gospel in the church. Because most of them, they are Christians. How can they keep their culture? After all, is the current issue. Another issue is that charismatic movement in Taiwan. We have native charismatic movement in 60s, especially in Taiwan churches, and different tribes. They have this kind of movement. The movement end in tragedy that most of the prophets in those movements, they are female prophets. They never never went to the seminary, but they have special inspiration from the Spirit. So they have the leadership in different congregations. So the minister, they also follow those prophets, female prophets. But after all, they start to worship the prophet instead of worship the God or the cross. So they end in different tragedies. And the spiritual movement just stopped after 1970s. Even till today, lots of elders, they refuse to talk about the time, at that time. They refuse to remember anything about that time. But after 2000s, the evangelical movement, they bring another kind of spiritual charismatic movement into different tribes. So they have a kind of spiritual revival again. But it's quite different than the original spiritual movement. It looks like very Americanized movement right now.
Wei Jen,
Yeah.
I know that you have a little bit more to go, but can we take a break first?
Yes.
And then I'll let you, finish. And during the break, we can break the, bread.
Okay.
Eat the cake.